did earlier, but that's okay. Today we're going to talk about the law of increase. The law of increase, there's a lot to the law of increase, but we've only got a little bit of time. So I'm going to focus on just a couple of pieces of the law of increase. We're going to talk about blessing. We're going to talk about giving and tithing. We're going to talk about receiving, and we're going to talk about gratitude. So that's the lineup for this morning. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about blessing. Chris, will you go to the next slide for me? A blessing. Blessing means to make holy or wild by spoken words, to ask divine favor for some situation or condition, to wish a person or a situation well, to make happy or prosperous, to gladden, to glorify, to praise, or to bring forth good in a situation, a condition, or a personality. You guys use...
I said you were phenomenal.
That was a blessing. That is a blessing.
I said you are the greatest.
Oh, see? They're trying to outdo each other. It's that woo factor that she's got going on. Now, let me tell you, I have a little brief story about how blessing worked in my life. At one point in my life, I quit a job where I had a salary. It was a comfortable salary, but it was not a good personality fit where I was working. And I took a commission sales job. Has anybody worked commission sales? Can that kind of test your belief in prosperity a little bit? Yeah, it really can. And what I learned early on is if when someone came in and it wasn't my customer, because it was a furniture store, so we were on an UPS system, so the customer would come in, and if you were the first one that got to the store that day, you were the first one up, and you got to greet that first customer. So if someone came in and it wasn't your up, and they bought something, you could be mad about that. And I realized that when I got mad about somebody else making a sale, guess what? I didn't make a sale all day long. I didn't. So what I learned is that when someone came in and got a sale from a customer, I blessed that transaction. I blessed the fact that they had a sale, because you know what? Because someone else makes a sale does not mean that I'm not going to make a sale, because we live in a prosperous, abundant universe. And when I blessed that sale, I would make sales. I was brand new in commission furniture sales. Within 6 months, I was managing a store. Within 7 months, I was being sent to other stores to teach them how to sell certain products. And I was blessing the whole time. Blessing works. And sometimes, sometimes there are things that we don't bless. I have a hard time sometimes blessing my body. Is that true for any of you? But the thing is, and this comes from Genesis, it says that God made the, I don't remember how it goes, but one day He made the birds and the fishes and the land, all that. And you know what He said at the end?
It was good.
That's right, it was good. Who are we as an embodiment of the Christ to say anything other than it is good? It is good. No matter what shows up in your life, it is good. Go to the next slide for me, Chris. I love this quote from Emmett Fox. He's an early New Thought writer. Bless a thing and it will bless you. Curse it and it will curse you. If you put your condemnation upon anything in life, it will hit back at you and hurt you. If you bless a situation, it has no power to hurt you, and even if it is troublesome for a time, it will gradually fade out if you sincerely bless it. I can't tell you the times that I've given negative self-talk to my body, and suddenly my back hurts, or I have a head cold, or I'm lethargic and I can't get out of bed. But when I bless my body, it feels better. I feel good. I forgot to tell you something about working at a furniture store. The furniture store actually taught a metaphysical principle. Does that sound crazy?
Yeah.
This is an amazing metaphysical principle for all of you to know. That which is measured improves. That which is measured improves. Keep that in mind because we're going to come to that. Chris, if you'll go 2 more slides for me. Because the next one's blank. And then we got the next piece that we're going to talk about is giving. I'm working up to our lesson, our $400,000 lesson. Giving. Giving in order to make room to receive is a scientific method that always works to prosper those who use it consistently. When you do not give, you stagnate, you dam up, and you close many channels to your prosperity. Where there is no voluntary giving, something is taken.
That is true.
That is true.
Say that louder for me, David.
That is true.
It is true. When you stagnate, when you hold on to, something gets taken from you. If you do not open yourself up to be a channel of the flow, including your finances, because you're saving for a rainy day. You save for a rainy day, you know what happens?
It rains.
It rains. If you're like me, your house might flood. Okay? You save for a rainy day and you're talking bad about your body and you're stagnant because you're not being open to the flow. And suddenly you've got dis-ease in your body. And so instead of being stagnant, you've got to use that money to pay some medical bills. That ever happened to anybody else? Okay, so don't be closed. Now, I want to make sure that we talk about giving because there are ways to give. Donating to your favorite charity is awesome. It's amazing. Taking your friend to lunch, that's a way to give. What other ways can you give?
Your time, your talent.
Your time and your talent. Yes. Anybody else?
You can smile at them.
You can smile. Yeah, you can smile at them. We're going to get to your point, Ellie. But you can smile at people. Because when you smile, you're giving them something, and isn't that a blessing? You're blessing. Okay. So let's go to the next slide because Ellie just yelled it out. Tithing. Okay, I want to make sure that we get this right. And this is my opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but I'm going to ask you to try it on today. Giving and tithing are not the same thing. Giving is not tithing. Okay? Tithing occurs with the acknowledgement that Spirit is the one and only source of your good. However you define your good. But until you acknowledge that Spirit is the one and only source of your good, you're not in a position to tithe. If you still think that your job or your spouse or your retirement or maybe your ex-spouse is the source of your good, of your income, you're not in a place to tithe. Tithing can only occur when you realize that Spirit is the one and only source of your good. Then you're ready to tithe. And tithing is the deliberate, consistent, joyful sharing of 1/10 of all you receive to the person, place, or institution from which you receive spiritual food. You get that? It's 1/10 of everything you receive. Before taxes. Before taxes. It's before taxes. Yes, 1/10 of everything you receive. Now, this is where I just taught you another metaphysical principle. Anybody remember what it is? That which is measured improves. Okay? You want to keep track of the good in your life? Start writing it down. Because, the good in my life, I had a dynamic meeting with our board of trustees this week. And Tuesday was not a great day for me. I have waves of grief that come up, and I wasn't having a great day, and I went to lunch to a place that I eat out like 3 times a week. And the waiter was like, "Are you okay today?" I'm like, "No, not really. I'm not having a great day. Just lots coming up for me, but thanks for asking." He bought my lunch that day.
Oh. Nice.
So that's part of the good showing up in my life. So when I tithe, I don't just tithe on what I get paid. I'm tithing on the fact that I didn't have to pay, $10 for my lunch. It's an extra $1 that I'm putting in today, because that's tithing. Now, again, I'm asking you to try on my thoughts, and if they don't fit, that's okay. But I hear talk about people, when we talk about the finances of the church, and people are like, "You could just give up a trip to Starbucks." To me, that's lack consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
There is no need for us to have to give anything up. There is a need for us to use divine understanding and divine wisdom to know what our tithing should be. That's up to you. But I don't think we have to give anything up. I think we have to use divine wisdom in order to prioritize that which is important in our lives. And I wrestled with this week as I was putting together this message. Because I thought about, we went a really long time, 18 months, when we didn't have a minister. And Pat Moore at the time was our celebration team leader. And Pat and I had a talk because we were in a similar situation, looking at some financial difficulties. And I remember looking at Pat and saying, "Well, Pat, I'm not tithing. I'm not tithing because Unity's not meeting my needs." And I had to sit with that this week as I was working on this message, because in preparing for another message, and the great book sale we had, from Frederick's Books,
Mm-hmm.
I found Loving What Is by Byron Katie, and so I've been working through that stuff. And so I had to look at my thought, Unity is not meeting my needs, and I had to say, is that true? And when I worked through that, Tom, help me with this, because I know you do this work a lot. Unity's not meeting my needs.
Is that true?
It's not.
And when you hold that thought, how does it make you feel?
It makes me feel sad. Makes me feel a little bit of anger and some disappointment.
And so if you were able to drop that thought, and I'm not saying for you to drop that thought, who would you be?
I would be joyful. I'd be showing up more in service. I'd be showing up more as a tither.
And if you were to look at that turnaround, what's the turnaround? Unity's not meeting my needs.
The turnaround is that Unity needs me.
Mm. Yeah.
Unity needs me.
And which one feels more true?
That Unity needs me. And that I need unity.
Mm-hmm.
That I need unity. I got an email this week I want to share with you guys, because I think it's important at this point that you know this. Paul Tenaglia is a well-known Unity minister. He served in New York with Eric Butterworth. Was it after your time with Eric? Margaret? Must have been after your time. But Paul studied with Eric Butterworth. He founded Unity of New York. It was a huge congregation. And last March he moved to California to reopen Unity of Palm Springs. And everybody knew that this was going to be a success. And this is the email that went out this week. Unity's adventure in Palm Springs has come to an end. Unity Palm Springs has closed its doors as of Easter Sunday. It's a simple matter of math. The revenues to support the ministry have not been forthcoming to pay our expenses. Although we averaged a Sunday attendance between 65 and 90, quite a good start actually, the donations barely paid the room rental, let alone the other necessities like insurance, legal fees, office supplies, and salaries. The suggestion was that we have a fundraiser. That only works when there is a base of donors to begin with. And the average donation on Sundays was around $6 a person. A church center cannot survive on that level of giving. And so we give thanks for the time we had together, as Carol Burnett would say, and look forward to our new adventure in spirit. Please share this with others who may have attended our services. I am grateful for you all. You know, that hit me in the solar plexus. I mean, that really just, it was a sucker punch. Here's this amazing Unity minister who's saying, no, we're done. But we're on to a new adventure, and let's bless everything. But it really made me sit with the new idea that Unity needs me. And Unity needs you. Which moves us on because the law of increase is not just about tithing. It's not just about blessing. It's about receiving. Can you go 2 slides forward for me? When you give regularly, you open the way to receive regularly. In both expected and unexpected ways. And you must be ready and willing to receive. This quote came from Catherine Ponder. I am receiving. I am receiving all the good Spirit is giving to me. I have been giving, and now I balance that giving by being willing to receive all the good that I have been accumulating for me. I have given richly, and I am receiving richly now. Do you get the necessity to receive?
Mhm.
Say it loud.
Yes.
Yes.
It's all
You
motion
do.
is circle.
Okay, now, sometimes we have trouble receiving. I do. Do you guys?
Yeah.
Let's go to the next slide. We have some blocks to receiving. Bitterness. You know, I told you my block to receiving a good customer, not a good customer, a buying customer, was bitterness. I was bitter that they got that customer. That customer should have been mine. They got here 2 minutes before me. Resentment can get in the way of our receiving. Fear, uncertainty, any false belief that we have, these things get in the way of our receiving. And the way we work through our blocks to receiving, anybody got a guess? Giving and forgiveness. Giving and forgiveness. And then there's one more thing you have to do to be willing to receive. Because if you just sit in that pew and hold your hands open, the experience of grace might deliver something unto you. But it's more likely if you get up and move your feet. If you want to be healed, pick up your bed and walk. You know, if you're in a commissioned sales position, you got to make some phone calls. Don't you? If you want to change your prosperity, if you want to change what you're willing to receive, you've got to take action as well. You have to take action. And finally, the last piece of this that we're going to talk about today is gratitude. Will you go forward 2 slides for me, Chris? In all things, give thanks. In all things, give thanks. Because when it was created, it was called good. In all things, give thanks. Because whatever is showing up in your life, the way you react to it is your manifestation. In all things give thanks. Give thanks for the creative power that you have. Because gratitude unlocks the beauty of life. And I love this quote. Gratitude, like faith, is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it grows, and the more power you have to use it on your behalf. If you do not practice gratefulness, its benefaction will go unnoticed, and your capacity to draw on its gifts will be diminished. To be grateful is to find blessings in everything. This is the most powerful attitude to adopt, for there are blessings in everything. See how we just made a complete circle? We started with blessing and we ended back up at blessing. It's pretty amazing, huh?
All energy.
So here's why that lesson cost $400,000. Will you go to the next slide for me? These are my friends Tony and Lester Purry. You don't know them. They lived in Los Angeles. I met Tony when I was working at the Alabama Shakespeare Festival. She was the audience development coordinator, and I had one of 5 different jobs when I was there. I don't remember what my title was at the time. But Tony and I would take long walks around the park, and Tony told me this incredible story of when she had to come up with something like $1,000 because she was running for Miss Alabama. She didn't have that money. She had just won the local pageant at Alabama State University, and she told me this great story. And so I called Tony up saying, I need the particulars of this story because I want to use it if you'll give me permission. And she said, Todd, I don't remember. But have I got a story for you? Tony was the first black Miss Alabama. She broke a 36-year barrier of race in that state.
Wow.
She's gone on to great things. She owns a public relations firm. And that is her husband, Lester. They met at the theater because Lester is an actor. He's a professional actor. And, you know, LA's kind of expensive. And in 2006, things were kind of tight. She was working a job. He hadn't had a lot of acting gigs. They had decided they were going to bring someone in to share their apartment with them. So that was $500 that they were expecting. And at the last minute, he flaked. He didn't move in. So they were kind of short on their rent. And they went to church that Sunday, and they had $170. $170, and they had a conversation. Do we hold on to this and use this for the rent? Well, you know, how? And they together they decided, no, this money is not ours. This $170 does not belong to us. It is coming through us, but this money belongs as our tithe. And so they tithed it. And after church, a man they had never seen before, and they had never seen since, walked up to them and handed them an envelope and said, the Holy Spirit told me I'm to give this to you today.
Wow. Wow.
They were so excited. Here's our $500, and they can, you know, they barely contain themselves, and they get to their car and they open it up. And will you go 2 more slides for me? One more. It was just a letter. Lack will soon be a thing of the past. You will be receiving a financial blessing soon. Remember your promise made to me. Remember to use it as you said you would. Remember to come to me when you need direction on where and how to disperse it. You have waited, you have been faithful, so shall I reward thee. But remember, forget me not. Love, Holy Spirit. And it's dated March 30th, 2006. You know, things happen. They somehow came up with the money for their rent. Do you guys know how game shows work? You know, contestants on game shows actually audition for game shows. So they had friends come to town. They're like, there's this audition for a game show. Let's go audition for the game show. So they go and they audition for the game show. And the game show got canceled after 2 episodes. So a year later, they get a phone call. And it's a casting director who had seen their audition tape. And they said, Lester, we're really interested in coming and appearing on this game show. But you know, Lester's a professional actor. He had made too much money the previous year to be eligible because of SAG rules, the Screen Actors Guild. So he couldn't do it. So Lester took a breath and listened to that still small voice within him, and he said, what about my wife? Maybe. Have her come talk to us. So Tony went, and she talked to them. They put her in a room with 6 pictures on the wall, and they said, tell us what these people do. Had to guess what is this job? So Tony had fun with it. She went through. She did an okay thing. And she left. And they're like, yeah, we'll be in touch. And it sounded like, yeah, no, this isn't going to happen. So then they get called back, and she had to bring a couple of friends with her because, you know, you get these lifelines, these people that are there to support you. So she goes, and they go in, and they're talking, and she has to do it again. And they're like, well, if you were to be on the show, this is what's going to happen. And if you were going to be on the show, this is what would happen. And if this is what would happen if you were going to be on the show. Okay, great. And so they leave. Then they get a phone call and they say, tomorrow's the last day of taping. We had you on our list, but we have enough contestants, so thanks for your time. We're done. Okay. So the next day at noon, Tony's cell phone rings in LA, and it's the producer who says, Tony, we need you to get here by 2 o'clock because we need more people. So, you know, it's LA traffic, and Tony still has to go home and change. And then she has to call her friends who have to be there to support her, and they're each an hour and a half away, and they have to get ready. And so they all arrive at the studio at 5 minutes till 2.
Wow.
And her friend says, you're not going to believe this, but at this time of day, there was absolutely no traffic. Of course there was no traffic. Okay, so they go in, and they go into a room again, and producers come in again, and Tony has to do this thing again. And on the way down the hallway, they see, you know, there are like 7 other rooms that have contestants waiting to go on the show. And this is the last day that they're going to be filming this show. And so, suddenly makeup people come in, and they're doing her hair and her makeup. They pull her away to legal, and she has to sign all these documents. Her friends get pulled away, and they have to sign all these documents because, you know, if you were to win, you can't tell anybody that you've won anything until the show airs. In fact, if you do win, you don't win anything until the show airs because the money that you're going to win is actually paid by the advertisers. So if it never makes it on air, there's no money for you to take home. Okay? So they just, you know, drove 2 hours, and they may or may not have any reason for being there. And so then somebody walks in and they say, I don't know what you did, but those producers really like you. You have jumped ahead of everyone else in the building, and you're going on now.
Wow.
Okay? So can I have the next slide? This is Tony on Identity. You Penn and Teller, the magician people. Yeah, that Penn, he's the... And so Tony has to guess, based on what these people look like, what their occupations are. You know? And so during the commercial breaks, they put these headphones on Tony, and she says they're blaring Beyonce, and so she can't hear anything that's going on, and it's just really loud, and she takes a breath, and the still small voice within her said, number two's a drummer. Gave her a whole list of what everybody did. Okay? It's kind of weird, huh?
Yeah.
So, Tony does really well. She only gets like 2 or 3 wrong. And it gets to the point where Tony has only got 3 contestants left. And she has earned $100,000. And there are 3 contestants left. And Ben goes, can I get the next slide? He says, so, you can lock in right now and leave with $100,000. Or you can keep playing, and if you get one wrong, you get nothing. But if you get the next 3 right, you leave with $500,000. And so Tony stands here, and her friends are going, lock it in. Lock it in. The audience is screaming, lock it in. And that still small voice in Tony says, you got this. You got this. And so Tony caved. Go to the next slide. Tony settled for $100,000 and locked it in. She had $100,000 that afternoon that she didn't have when she got up. But then Penn said, well, just for fun's sake, let's see what would have happened. And if she had kept playing, she would have left with $500,000.
Wow.
It's a $400,000 lesson, huh? But now here's the kicker. This is where I love Spirit. I just told you that you don't get paid any of that money unless it airs on TV. And so, only 2 episodes have aired. They've done all these tapes. They're waiting. They can't tell anybody. It'd really be nice to have that money. And so they're just waiting. And then they get a phone call. Your episode is going to appear on March 30th, 2007.
Wow.
That's 1 year to the date from the day someone walked up to them in church and said, lack will soon be a thing of the past. So, the law of increase is real. It's true. Now, I'm a firm believer, and I told Tony this, and she agreed with me. If it was necessary for her to have another $400,000, Spirit is going to find a way to deliver that to her. There is no lack. There is no lack. But the law of increase only works when you take action. When you bless, when you tithe, when you receive, and when you show gratitude. You guys willing to do that?
Yep.
So will you step into a 90-day challenge with me? Let's throw it up on the screen now, Chris. Here's your 90-day challenge. Bless everything that comes into your life, no matter how uncomfortable it might feel. Because when it was made, it was called good. Bless everything. And then I want you to tithe 10% of it, all of the good that comes into your life to the person, place, or the institution that feeds you spiritually. I would love to think that that's Unity in Greensboro, and if it's not, that's okay. In this 90-day challenge, I want you to tithe 10% to whatever person, place, or institution that feeds you spiritually. I want you to be open to receive. And don't be like me and decide this is what it's supposed to look like when I receive. Because when I decide what it's supposed to look like, I limit the way the universe can show up. Be open to receive in whatever ways it might show up. And it might show up by somebody buying you lunch that you had no expectation that they would ever do such a thing for you. Be open to whatever ways it will show up. And finally, be openly grateful for everything. Show gratitude for the people in your life. Show gratitude for the stuff in your life. Show gratitude for your body. And I believe that you will learn, as I have learned, that there is no limit to the law of increase. Namaste.